Hi. I've been thinking about two different things. I follow what's known as the tech industry and several pundits, and I've been thinking about the implications coming from two different things. One has to do with Google's tussle with the U.S. Department of Justice as to whether or not they're a monopoly. And the other one is Apple's tussle with the European Union over openness. And I wondered about how these affect or play into the industry I've written about for the last 25 years, industrial automation and control of software. But first, a word from my longtime sponsor, and appreciate these people, very good company, Inductive Automation, and their flagship product, Ignition. I was just up in Folsom, California, a couple of weeks ago and sat in the keynotes and some other explanations of their new Ignition release 8.3. And I have to say, I'm impressed. I'm impressed for a number of reasons. One, they've done a lot of work, and I had a talk with Colby Clegg, the CEO, and Carl Gould, the CTO, in different times, and talking about how hard it was to get this out. It's a lot of work. But 21 years ago, I met Steve Heckman, the founder of Inductive Automation, and he explained the idea that they were going to build an HMI SCADA from the ground up using IT-friendly technologies so that it would connect easily into the IT ecosystems and so on. And actually, at the time, I had met, in fact, I still meet a lot of CEOs, and sometimes I have to have a piece of healthy skepticism when I talk to these people. But actually, they did what he talked about, and they continue to do it. And 8.3 builds on all the ideas that he expressed way back 21 years ago. And this is even this release had and they don't spike the first two rows of the keynotes with employees who are going to hoot and cheer and whatever. So when they announced some of the new things and there was a lot of applause, that was from integrators and users who were the audience, what they know as their community. And so it's real. So anyway, check out if you go to inductiveautomation.com, you can check out all the new features in Ignition 8.3. It's really cool, a lot of useful stuff there. This is beyond HMI SCADA now, and they've talked about being an IoT, an Internet of Things platform, but they're even up beyond that. They're not a full-blown MES, they're not trying that, but they are full-blown really good, useful industrial software. And you know it's useful because when you go to their website, you could check out uh, different places where their integrators and users have put in projects, really cool projects. I'm really impressed with what people do with the ingenuity of their partner ecosystem and with the Ignition 8.3. So anyway, check out inductiveautomation.com, my longtime sponsor, much appreciated. So I'm thinking about two different things, and one is companies getting large, maybe monopolistic or something, and the other one would be open systems. So Google's the first, Apple the second. Let's tackle them one at a time. So let's look at the Google thing. So basically, the Department of Justice said, Google, you are so big, you monopolize search, and actually, we all know we're using Google, and some pundit wrote, "Oh, but they still have really good search." And I go, they haven't had really good search in years. I hate their search. I'm going to a city. I know I'm going to stay at a certain hotel. I look up that hotel. Simple thing. I can put in all the specific of the hotel. Does Google give me that? No. They give me three or four sponsored results. That's advertising paid to Google if I click on it and which I don't. And then they also give me at least a full page, if not two full pages of fluff, you know, tripsomething.com and travelsomething.com and hotels.com and all this other stuff that before I finally even get a sniff at the thing I'm looking for. So no, Google search isn't all that good anymore, and it hasn't been for quite a long time. But how can they get away with not really serving the customer? Well, there's a monopolistic tendency, whether or not I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not even going to get into that. But still in all, And then the question becomes after all this is maybe they're too large and maybe they need to break into smaller chunks. Um, the government went after AT&T, IBM, US Steel, a whole bunch of other large companies and industries. And usually by the time it gets to the government stage and all that, the writing has already been on the wall that they should have been breaking up themselves anyway, because you get to a point you just can't manage it. And you get to a point where growth becomes really, really hard, at least percentage growth. And usually you become so bureaucratic. Look at GE lately under Welch, where it got so bureaucratic and so inbred that they ceased innovation. The only innovation they had was how can I move financial numbers around to make it look good on Wall Street. So anyway, Google, maybe it's time. So let's look at we could call it the industry or the market that I cover, and and take a look at what's going on. I've been writing for some time now that it's a very, very mature market. How much innovation is really going on? How are the companies growing? So I looked up, I did Claude.ai and ChatGPT and did a number of questions based on mature markets, and it came back with a number of characteristics. And basically, what we're seeing, we see, growth is by acquisition. Are they developing new things? No. Emerson buys National Instruments. National Instruments went from being a really thrilling, exciting, innovative, entrepreneurial company on purpose became a corporate company, bureaucracy and all that stuff, so that it could be sold easily and incorporated into a bureaucratic organization, which is Emerson. But the same thing happens in Rockwell. Rockwell's been growing by acquisition. It bought Plex and Fix to get into software as a service rather than developing their own. Uh, Let me think about some other ones, Schneider is still absorbing all the software it bought through Aviva and so on. So that's one thing. Another thing that mature industries do is divest. So they start divesting a little bit. So we look at, I haven't seen as many divestitures of Rockwell as some of the other words. I just got a press release from Siemens that their divestiture of the motors division is final. And they have sold off motors. They've been selling off things to quote unquote concentrate on their core. Emerson has sold off a number of its old line, quote unquote, divisions, companies, if you will. Down the road from where I used to live in Ohio was what we knew as Copeland Corporation, which became Emerson Climate Technologies, but that's been spun off. They make compressors for air conditioning and refrigeration, developers of the manufacturing method to do the scroll compressor, which was their forte, but they're gone. And several other divisions of Emerson are gone. Siemens has been divesting. Emerson Rockwell long ago started just emphasizing just industrial automation. ABB has been spinning off a number of its divisions to focus more on that sort of thing. And that's something you'll see in mature industries where growth is by acquisition, trying to divest things and shrink down a little bit. And one wonders if maybe some of these companies don't need to divest more. Would they be more innovative in their software and maybe even in their hardware if those chunks were broken off into separate companies and they could be small and agile again and maybe more innovative? Don't know, but I think it's worth pondering as we take the lessons learned from other industries and apply them to the industry that we know. The other thing is Apple, and the European Union tussle with Apple is over open systems. Now, on one hand, I empathize with Apple on their App Store ecosystem because I mean, it is their phone. I mean, they developed it. Nobody else has developed an iPhone type thing. Uh, so that's one thing. The App Store is theirs. They developed the platform and everything for people to put applications on it. I love apps. They are so easy to use. I can, take a look at my screen, I suppose, for those of you looking on the YouTube video rather than uh, listening on the podcast. And yeah, I have lots of apps and they're really useful and I just click and go and they're so simple, it's easy to use. Some few companies have complained that they want to do their own app store within the Apple App Store. Okay, so I'm going to use Apple's foundation and try to do things without paying Apple. Doesn't seem fair on the one hand, but we've seen the same thing in industrial automation where all of the major automation companies try to have a closed corral and essentially lock people into their own product. Once you have done all of your refineries in Honeywell or Yokogawa or ABB, for example, or Foxborough, Siemens, Schneider, excuse me, you have to keep going at it. 25 years ago, when I became an editor, I went to a meeting of an organization at the time brand new called OMAC, Open Modular Architecture Controller. The impetus for this organization was that one of the divisions of General Motors at the time was upset that they were facing a price increase from Rockwell Automation for their programmable controllers. And they thought, what if we developed an open controller that everybody subscribed to, and it's all open technology. Now you could put proprietary boards in it, kind of like the old PC industry that I also grew up in, where you could buy a PC. In fact, I used to do that. I used to buy motherboards and cards and assemble my own computer based on whatever. And they were looking at that kind of a thing, and they were looking at a standard called compact PCI and a chassis that yeah, Rockwell, Siemens, whoever could do a card for that for their IO or whatever, but the whole thing was open, and they were hoping for open software that would be interchangeable, interoperable, and all of those cool inter words. Did that really work? No, nothing happened. It is really hard to come up with that. In fact, at a trade show, I ran into a developer who was showing an OMAC controller. Now, at the time, OMAC didn't have a certification standard, but he put it together and he called it open. It was a compact PCI chassis. And I went by and I said, oh, again, this looks really interesting. Do you know that the manufacturer of this compact PCI chassis does not follow all of the compact PCI standards, and therefore this is not an open chassis? And he went, oh, and the next day that was gone. And so much for open controllers. But OMAC did some cool things. They did some standardized interfaces and a state model, which was designed to help not so much open all the controllers, but it made it such that operator training, so all the operator interfaces and all the nomenclature was standardized such that if you're, for example, a Procter and Gamble and you've got a whole bunch of different packaging machines and filling machines and all those kinds of things in your plant, the interfaces all look pretty darn similar so that an operator could go from spot to spot to spot and intuitively pick it up and work on it. So they did some really good work that way, and that was quite a long time ago. And OMAC still exists as part of the Packaging Machinery Manufacturers Institute, PMMI. But so it did some good work, but it didn't come up with an open controller. Well, a little bit later, just a few years ago, another group, same thing. Okay, a group is a group of a company within a company is upset that they got behind and they really needed to upgrade their controllers, their process control. And they started to total it up, and it was going to cost a lot of money. That's what happens when you put off upgrading and then all of a sudden you need to. So they said, well, rather than paying company X so much money, let's develop an open process automation controller and ecosystem, and then anybody can contribute to it. That will drive the prices down and it will drive up innovation. So we have the Open Process Automation Forum, which is part of the Open Group. I thought they were going to make a lot of progress for quite a long time. They were looking pretty interesting, but this has drug on a long time. I had an early career in product development, And if it took me this many years to come out with a product, we'd have been out of business. As a matter of fact, we were. But anyway, we'd have been out of business. You have to come up with a product a lot faster than that. And when you're putting together open and you're trying to get a whole bunch of different companies together, some of those companies may be reluctant to actually have an open controller. So they may be doing things to like slow the process down. I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but I do know that that happens. I've been on committees. So seems to me that OPAP is also trading down this line of, is it ever going to really happen? And when it does, will it really matter because some other technology may come along and just upset everything? There are really inexpensive technologies out there. You can take a Raspberry Pi and you can put some software on there, and it could be C or but it could be other things, and load it in there, and you can control a lot of stuff. The way machines are built these days and the way lines are, you could do a lot of stuff with just a Raspberry Pi. So that is a different way. That to me, that opens up, an entrepreneurial method. I'm watching at the inductive automation ecosystem that, along with the developers of MQTT, and then you take like Opto 22 with their Groove system, or Phoenix Contact has been in, and they have a small PLC type system, and some others. And you could take these things and they could do a heck of a lot of stuff with this ecosystem around inductive automation and these controllers and I/O and so on. And I don't know how disruptive that can be, but when I look at automation lines, they're not like they used to be with big honking PLC3s and big expensive I/O modules and trying to tie the whole line together into one controller. And now we've broken it down and made it much easier to control. I think that disruption may come from another whole direction. Don't know. So we have Apple with openness, we have Google with too big, maybe monopolistic. We don't really have monopolistic in our particular market, but we do have maybe oligopolistic, where once you're bought into Honeywell or Rockwell or Siemens or ABB or Yokogawa, you're kind of there, and that's kind of where you're stuck until you get big enough to negotiate your prices down. And yeah, when an Emerson can tie everything together, they theoretically make everything work better together. But once upon a time, I sold and installed Rockwell products, and well, we won't go there. But interesting things to think about, I think. And if you're if you are a systems integrator, I think there's opportunities. And if you are in end user, as we say, or practitioner in the industry, would pay to keep your eyes open and look broadly around at what's going on, and see where you can go and what you can use to for more flexibility, more interoperability, better pricing, all of those kinds of things. They all add up. Anyway, a few thoughts on the industry and my particular marketplace. This is Gary Mitchell once again, back with my infrequent occasional podcast, which has been ongoing since 2007. Believe it or not, it's been a long time. 17 years of podcasts. And for the last quite a few years, my sponsor has been Inductive Automation. Greatly appreciate them for upping with me again this year. Go to inductiveautomation.com and check out their Ignition 8.3 release. It's really cool. It's got a lot of really cool features, a lot of IT friendly things to help you tie your systems together in an innovative way. Not to mention Inductive University, a place where you can get trained, and learn new things, and an ecosystem of partners that'll share ideas. A lot of cool things going on there. So check them out, inductiveautomation.com. Gary Mitchell here saying thank you for listening, and talk to you again later.